Forget New Year, New You. This season is about slowing down, locking the doors, and cozying up at home with the one you really want to do nothing with. Your dog. After the holiday chaos, those quiet nights with a blanket, a podcast, and your pup feel like the reset you actually need. Ollie helps make those moments easier with fresh protein-packed meals made from real human-grade ingredients, so your dog can enjoy some quality comfort food too. Choose from 5 recipes and get a personalized plan for your dog's needs. Meals arrive perfectly proportioned with a scoop and storage container, so serving is fast and mess-free. And with Ollie's in-app on-demand health screenings, supporting your dog is easy, ensuring more cuddles for many years to come. Visit ollie.com/truecrime and use code TRUECRIME for 60% off your first box.
This is a story about a family, a wealthy family who lived in the South.
Unfortunately for this family is they have drama. They are not a perfect family. My family is imperfect. Everybody's family is. Those families, however, don't consist of murder.
Let me start at the beginning. The patriarch and the matriarch of the Farris family were Gary and Melody Farris, a now middle-aged couple who had been together for decades. Gary and Melody met each other when they were 16 years old through mutual friends at church. They married young, right out of high school. Melody was only 19 years old. Over the years, they had 4 children. Chris was the oldest. Next was Scott. The brothers were close and slept in bunk beds growing up. Then came Emily, the quote, smart one. Finally, Amanda, the baby. Gary and Melody raised their children in Alabama and then moved to Atlanta, Georgia in the 1990s, as Gary's career took off after law school. Gary had studied law at the University of Alabama and graduated at the top of his class. He was a workaholic who was passionate about his job. His children had no doubt, though, that their father loved them. Son Scott would later say his father was the smartest man he knew.
Oh, growing up, he always, was grabbing our books from school and reading stuff, and he always loved watching Jeopardy and, constantly watching that, and he just, Alex Trebek will ask a question, boom, he'll get out the answer.
Gary was a corporate lawyer who handled real estate litigation at Burr and Foreman, a major national firm which employed 350 lawyers in 8 states. He worked hard at his job and was a senior partner. He planned family vacations to the beach when he was going to a nearby law seminar. That seemed to be the only time he took off. Outside the office, Gary liked corny dad jokes and reading. He read everything, war books and history books. He watched the History Channel, old westerns, The Andy Griffith Show, and MASH. He was a homebody when he wasn't working. Gary, who weighed 300 pounds and was 6'4", was lovingly called Big Daddy. He always had a Mountain Dew in his hand and a cigarette in his mouth. Those were his 2 vices. He didn't drink alcohol and wasn't a big coffee drinker. His family wasn't thrilled with his Mountain Dew and nicotine habits. They failed to convince him to stop, even though his health was deteriorating. He also loved his key lime pie. He had high blood pressure that made his children fear he would have a heart attack.
Your dad's health, he would have some things called spells. Tell the jury what that was.
So, best way I can describe it was he would get very weak. He talked very thick tongue, like his tongue was swollen up, and some people would think he was drunk, the way he kind of slurred, but he just got very exhausted and wanted to go lay down. And when he would have them, that's what he did. He would go and lay down, either on the couch or go lay in bed, and he would sleep for a couple hours.
A complicated family dynamic, a mysterious death, and suspicions that would tear a family apart. This is Jillian in partnership with Law and Crime. You are listening to Court Junkie, episode 286. There's another important thing to know about Gary Farris. He was very generous. He helped one of his daughters buy a house, helped his son purchase an engagement ring, and he paid all the bills for another son who couldn't find work. His generosity reportedly began to eat away at his wife. Gary and Melody, who had been together for nearly 4 decades, were two very different people. Even as a successful lawyer, Gary drove a Suburban until he ran it up to 200,000 miles. His son urged him to splurge and get a Mercedes to replace it, but he wasn't flashy or showy. He didn't like to flaunt his wealth. Melody was petite, soaking wet, maybe 125 pounds. She hadn't finished college and worked at her parents' hardware store while Gary pursued his education. But she was no fool. She was strong-willed, and according to their son Scott, she wasn't afraid to give her opinions. Also unlike Gary, Melody had high-end tastes.
Everything she had was like top of the line, Tory Burch or Chanel or, all high-end clothing.
Melody would decorate their home with 5 Christmas trees, so it looked like it was right out of Southern Living magazine.
Did your dad take care of your mom when it comes to things that he provide nice things for?
All the time, yes.
Like, did she have fur coats, mink coats, whatever you call it? Did she have nice clothing?
Yes.
Did she have nice jewelry?
Yes.
She had nice dishes and things like that in the house?
Yes.
Clothing?
Yes.
She liked to shop?
Oh, yes.
How would you describe their marriage to each other?
Not good.
Why so?
Because she was constantly disappearing, taking off, spending an abundance of money. Said she was going to do one thing, and that's not what she was going to do. And, they were constantly arguing with each other. Never out in public. It was always at the house. But...
Did your dad ever hit her?
No.
Lay a finger on her?
No.
Was he a screamer, yeller, cusser? What was your dad like when they would argue?
I wouldn't really say it's screaming, but, he raised his voice, but he never, was screaming so hard that someone would lose their voice. He was never like that.
And what was she like?
Oh, she screamed.
Their daughter Emily was later asked the same question.
How was your parents' relationship when you were younger? It was good from my perspective. From everything that I saw, they were very loving with each other. Like physically touchy-feely kisses, hugs. They certainly, from my perspective, seem like to have a healthy relationship. Yes.
And from your perspective, did that change at all?
Yes, it did change later in the years. I would say not till I got into college was there a difference.
Do you know what caused that change?
Yes. My mother began having an affair with Ted Wiley, and when my dad found out about it, that's pretty much when things went south.
Melody and her lover Ted didn't hide what they were doing. In fact, they flaunted their affair. One time, Ted grabbed Melody's rear end at a restaurant in plain view of Scott.
And that right there triggered. And from there on, she started disappearing. She would leave, say, I'm going to run to the store, and not come back until either very, very early in the morning or till the next day, and leave me stranded with no vehicle.
Emily recalled when she first found out about the affair.
My dad called me. He called me. I was working, and he called me when I was working, and I took a break to talk to him. And he told me that my mom had moved in with Ted and that they were in a relationship. And that was pretty devastating.
Who was Ted Wiley? How did you know him?
So Ted, sorry.
That's okay, take your time.
Ted dated my Aunt Sherry, who is my dad's sister. We've been together for a very long time. I remember Christmas gatherings when Ted was around when I was like 7. He's been around for a very long time. But Ted was dating my Aunt Sherry. Yes.
And you had mentioned that your mom moved in with Ted, and if that's the information that you had at the time.
Yes.
How long did she stay gone?
It was quite a while. It was, certainly longer than a month. I want to say it could have been like 3 months. We couldn't really get a hold of her during that time. And, it was so long ago. It's a little bit of a blur, but it was a good chunk of time for sure.
At any point during the Ted Wiley affair, was there a financial situation that you became aware of between your parents?
Yeah, my dad had called me and said that, like, right before she kind of, for lack of a better word, disappeared, she had withdrawn a significant amount of money from their home equity line of credit tied to the house.
And how was your dad when he told you about that?
He was upset. I kind of can understand where he was coming from. If my spouse did that, I would be upset. I think anyone would, without communicating. I think that was very troubling for him, because she had never done anything like that before.
Did you say she had never done?
She had never done anything like that before.
According to Emily, the affair completely changed the relationship between her parents.
I just think that he lost trust that was once there. And it was just like we all knew it happened, but there was no explanation from her end on why it happened, or that there was no apology. So it was really hard as a family for us to move on, because it was almost like, we're just not going to talk about that now.
Did your parents' financial relationship change?
Yes, it did.
How so?
So my dad removed her from bank accounts, or he, I guess, closed joint, open new. So she no longer was on the bank accounts, so she can, she didn't have access the way that she did before.
Gary contacted Scott while Scott was deployed in Iraq and told him he was going to divorce Melody. That was in 2009 or 2010. But Gary never followed through, and Scott was too busy and focused on his deployment to get involved with his parents' marital problems. It would turn out that Melody wasn't the only one who was unfaithful.
When you moved to Atlanta, did you have any opportunity to ever meet Angela Phillips?
I've pretty much known of Angela my entire life. That was my dad's legal assistant. So as far as I can remember my dad working for the law firm, she was the legal assistant.
Okay. And when did you find out about the relationship that your dad had with Angela?
I never knew about a relationship with her.
Have you ever heard about it before?
Nope. This is the first time I've ever hearing this.
In court, Gary's assistant, Angela, testified she couldn't remember if she and Gary actually had sex, but it was clear their relationship crossed an inappropriate boundary as they spent late, alcohol-filled nights together. Angela later said she was struggling in her personal life and didn't have friends to lean on. Despite their marital problems, Gary and Melody Farris didn't divorce. They stayed together and remained unhappy. Gary sometimes wondered if Melody was out to get him. Their oldest son, Chris, remembered that around 2014, his dad was ill in the hospital.
I talked to the doctors, and they were just trying to figure out kind of what was wrong with him to cause him to have the spell that caused him to have to be brought to the hospital. So they ran some tests. I know they had a stress test and all that kind of stuff.
While you were talking to your dad in the hospital, did he enlighten you on what he thought was wrong with him?
He did.
And what was that?
He said, "Chris, I think your mother's trying to poison me."
And what was your reaction?
I said, "Excuse me." He said, "Well," it's like, "she spent the day screaming at me, and I was watching TV in the theater room, and all of a sudden she brings me down some cookies. And I ate the cookies, and my throat started burning, and then I started feeling bad." And I told him, are you, like, what? He said, "Oh, I'm just probably paranoid or something." Some paraphrasing. I don't remember exactly what he said, but he kind of shrugged it off. And that's what he said.
At that time, did you know the state of your parents' relationship?
I know they didn't like each other very much.
Scott said Melody always spoke negatively about their dad.
It's like she always tried to brainwash us, like he was, such a horrible person.
While under cross-examination in a murder trial that took place in October 2024, Scott Farris testified about all the death and destruction he had seen in Iraq on his deployment. "I've experienced a lot," Scott said, as he told stories to the jury about the horrors he had seen firsthand. It affected him. He said when he returned back to the United States, he felt uncomfortable in crowded places. Post-deployment, Scott's dream of working in law enforcement fell apart. He struggled to adjust to civilian life and to build a career to support himself. That's how Scott ended up on his parents' hobby farm on Purcell Lane in Cherokee County, a rural area about 40 miles north of Atlanta. Their home was an A-frame house with rocking chairs on a wraparound porch, a beautiful home. For Gary and Melody Farris, it was a new start together. There was a reason why Gary wanted to live in the country and have animals. He knew Melody liked horses. She had gone horseback riding regularly with her lover, Ted. The farmhouse, if you want to call it that, had cathedral ceilings, a fireplace, an open modern kitchen, a library with built-in bookshelves, and horse stables. Emily Farris explained more in court.
So I think buying kind of like a horse farm was kind of like my dad's way of trying to make her happy. I know that's a little strange, but, I just think it was a chance to start fresh. I think from his perspective it was that, but I don't know why together as a couple they decided to move, but I think it was a chance to start over for sure.
The youngest daughter, Amanda, saw things differently.
I never really understood why they bought the house.
Did you ever hear, I'll stop you to ask this question, did you ever hear that it was going to be kind of your mom and your dad's fresh start? Did you ever hear that?
That's what I assumed it had to have been, because we had a come to Jesus meeting about it. And we both knew. I said, you know what this is. You know who she is. You know who you are. I need you to make a decision. I was in a relationship with a loser for quite some time, and they both came down and got me out of that relationship, and him and I were at Tacos and Tequilas in Buckhead, and I said, Daddy, if this is the hard decision I had to make, you need to make that decision too. You need to be happy. I would text them when they would say, oh, Daddy, or Mama would send me something, a screenshot, or being mad with Daddy, and I'd be like, y'all need to figure this out. Like, y'all are going to have a heart attack one day. Or like Daddy would complain about something and I'd be like, y'all need to figure it out. This is not my problem. It's just, I thought of that Purcell house as they both knew what they were getting into. And at that point, my hands were off of it. I said, that's y'all's problem. My dad told me, he said, I love her and I'm not leaving her. So that was his choice, not mine. He knew my opinion.
To help Gary take care of the animals at the 10-acre hobby farm, Gary made a deal with Scott, who was 30 at the time and who was struggling to launch his career post-deployment. Gary would financially support him, and in turn, Scott would manage the farm, which had horses, goats, chickens, and pigs. Scott lived in the barn apartment.
Basically, he would give me a credit card, debit card, and, I was able to go eat lunch and stuff like that and pay my cell phone bill. I didn't have much bills at all. So he never really gave me an allowance, except for the time that, he decided to open up the other bank account and, he didn't keep a lot of money in it because around that time, Melody kept asking for the card I had and going off and buying stuff.
Did your dad want her to have that card?
No, especially the credit card. When he gave me the credit card, I remember he sent me a text saying, hold on to this like your life depended on it.
100 yards behind the house was a burn pit. When talking about the sibling dynamics, Amanda, the youngest, said all the 4 grown kids were all fairly close. They celebrated holidays together and were friends, although they weren't privy to all the inner goings-on of each other's lives. Still, Amanda testified that she was bothered by Scott. Here's how Amanda described him.
Scott, he just lived at home. Him and I really didn't get along. He was kind of aggressive towards me at times, but other times we were fine with each other.
She called him a different character and said he was introverted and didn't have a lot of friends.
I want to talk about, he gets back from Iraq. Can you tell me about any specific instances you remember? You mentioned anger and things like that. Can you talk about that for the jury?
He was just very protective over the farm. And I never understood why we called it a farm. Because it was a glorified petting zoo at most. But, sorry.
They know. They've seen it.
Sorry, we had a lot of animals growing up, and this was like that on steroids. It made no sense.
Had you ever heard your brother Scott say, this is my property?
Yes.
This is my house?
Multiple times. He flaunted the fact that was his property. I almost kind of like joked in a way he kind of vicariously lived through my dad.
But he would claim things as his that were not his. That's fair to say.
They belonged to my mother and my father.
Okay. And you say, how often would you hear him say this?
He wouldn't say it like all the time, but it was always just like my farm, my property, my Kubota. He would get on social media. He would say, this is my property. He claimed ownership to it. That's for sure.
Okay. And speaking of social media, had you ever seen your brother shoot guns or anything like that?
He was in the military. He was always shooting guns at the house, from what I was heard and what he said.
Even in this idyllic farmhouse with lots of animals, Emily said she believed her mother was still cheating on her dad. Melody began talking about someone named Rusty. After Emily moved to Tennessee, Melody came to visit her. And when she did, she brought Rusty as a surprise guest. Melody and Rusty were giddy, sitting too close together, whispering, touching legs under the table. They acted like a couple. Melody listed Rusty as XOXO in the contacts in her phone. Horrified, Melody's daughters kept the second affair from their father because they knew it would devastate him. When Emily got married, Melody added Rusty to the guest list. Emily knew Melody would cancel the wedding otherwise, so she agreed to invite him. Melody and Rusty danced together on the dance floor at the reception. Fortunately, Emily was too preoccupied to realize what was happening. She didn't notice how angry it made her siblings, and of course, Gary.
It was in the days after the wedding. It was, I think, my brother Chris that brought up the anger that everyone was feeling during the reception. There was a lot of my siblings staring down the situation. I know my sister told me that she was almost having to be held back. She was so angry at her behavior with Rusty on the dance floor. She almost wanted to, it was a reception, we were all drinking. But, she was, very angry, and Chad almost had to, hold her back. And there's just, they were telling me things, and I, would think back on the reception and, remember glimpses of interaction. I didn't know what was going on. And then, my brother Chris was well, we had gone to eat before we left town, and Daddy said, that's the last time she's ever going to embarrass me like that again. I can only imagine how devastated he was by that.
And so even in the peaceful countryside, away from the big city and the Atlanta noise, tensions were running high in the farmhouse. In court, Scott was asked if he recalled an incident where his mom broke a plate.
We were working on the project between the house and the pond, the big stone walls and everything. And I remember I was either planting some plants or doing mulch or something. My dad was on the other side of the property, and she came out of my dad's office doors and screaming and cussing, and she threw a plate up against the wall of the house, and she screamed, "I can't wait till the day he fucking dies. I can't wait till the day I don't have to live with him anymore."
How close were you to this when she did it?
I was within 10 yards.
How far was your dad away?
He was over 100 yards away.
Do you know if he heard it or saw it?
I know he didn't. He never said anything to me that he noticed it. And I don't remember seeing him. So I knew he was up on the other side of the property.
How mad was she when she did this?
Like I said, she came out yelling and cussing and threw it as hard as she could up against the wall, and it shattered into several pieces.
And you were certain she was talking about your dad?
Oh, yes.
Why was Melody so upset? According to testimony, Gary had left either a plate of key lime pie or a Mountain Dew can in the basement. Melody, who liked an immaculate house, freaked out. According to Scott, his mother would regularly disappear in the middle of the week and be gone for days. She had 2 cell phones. One of the phones she tried to hide from them. Her kids assumed she used it to talk to her lover. Melody clashed with her children, often over money. When she was home, she would tell Scott to get a job. Years earlier, in 2016, Gary helped his daughter Emily and her husband buy a house when Emily's husband had a judgment against him that prevented him from taking out a mortgage.
So, I'll be honest with you, we did try to keep it kind of a secret from my mom, just because we knew she would be upset about it. But then in the state of Tennessee, whenever you go to purchase a house and you're married, your spouse has to give you permission to do that. So we had to tell her. She was very angry that he was helping me. Very angry. But basically, she said the only reason that she would agree to it or allow him to do it is if she were put on the deed to my house.
Okay. What does that mean for those of us that
she would have ownership? She would have ownership of my house. And that was upsetting. But I was in a really bad situation, and I knew I really had no other option. And I was like, it's okay. That's what I told my husband. I was like, it's okay. We'll do this right now, and we will refinance once, like a year. We'll let a year go by. We'll let this, judgment fall off, or like settle on your record. We will refinance and we'll get it under our name and it'll be fine. But it made me very uncomfortable to have her. My dad was a very reasonable person. He was very logical. So I knew he would never give me a hard time. I knew she would give me a hard time. And that made me really uncomfortable. Basically, her reasoning was, if anything ever happens to him, I want to be able to essentially have some sort of access, control to it. So that's what she said is her reasoning. And she had made some comments about him unexpectedly passing away. So she had brought things up like that before. So anyway, again, just to do it, just so we could get the house, I said, that's fine. So it was me, and then it was my parents together, on the deed. So we closed, and we moved in. She did bring up something about him having her removed as his beneficiary on her 401k. And I work in HR, so I'm kind of familiar with that. And I just said, I don't think that he can remove you as his beneficiary unless you got a divorce. And she said that he made her sign a piece of paper removing her from the beneficiary. And at the time, I didn't know that much about it. But I was like, if you're legally married, I'm pretty sure your spouse has to be your beneficiary in your 401k. So I just kind of put her at ease in that moment. No, everything will be fine. We'll make sure everything's taken care of. Don't worry. If anything like that were to happen, it'll be fine.
By the summer of 2018, Melody Farris was livid. Gary, the high-profile attorney earning a good salary, still seemed to be funding his adult children's lifestyles. Emily read a text message her mom wrote her on July 2nd.
Just giving you a heads up about things. Chris continues to charge his cable, phone, and airline tickets to Gary's checking account. Charged their honeymoon and their beach trip year you got married to us as well. Now another beach trip. After I told him no, and why. After I told him no and why, he never paid back Jenna's ring that was financed by us. I have had it. I'm taking measures to stop this insanity.
When you received this message, what were you thinking?
I thought it was intense. To be honest with you, but I thought it was intense. I don't even know if I responded to her, honestly. I know I sent it to my brother, Chris. Just to kind of give him a heads up of how angry she was.
Chris, the eldest brother, was asked about this in court.
Were there further conversations between you and your dad about the beach?
Yeah, he told me to pick out a couple places where I thought we could go. He had given some recommendations. I had been to Orange Beach before, but I wasn't that familiar with it. I usually went to Destin. But I ended up picking a couple places, and he said, oh, yeah, that place is good, and he booked it and paid for it.
I would like to talk about, you mentioned your dad booked for it and paid for it. Did
Yes.
your dad pay for a lot of things?
Yes.
And did he pay for a lot of things for you?
Yes.
Like what?
He would always pay for my children to fly down. He would pay for Ella's horseback riding lessons. He would pay for the girls' dance lessons, recitals, costumes. He would help me out with bills. My dad helped me and paid for a lot.
Did you have a job at this time?
Yes.
What was your job?
At the time, I had my own painting company.
So, was your dad that helpful with everyone in the family?
I believe so.
To your knowledge?
To my knowledge.
Okay. So, when it came to the beach, he was okay paying for that?
Yeah, he was going with us.
And was there an agreement between the two of you with what that would look like?
I was going to pay for everything there. The dinners, whatever, things you pay for at the beach. And he was going to pay for the condo.
Was your mom going to the beach?
No.
How do you know that?
Because my father told me he was trying to get her to go to the beach and she refused.
Okay. Did you talk to her about the beach?
I did.
And what was her reaction to you?
She told me she had too much going on and she couldn't go.
The planning for the beach trip was done at the end of June 2018. And just days later, something would happen that would destroy the Farris family forever. The weather. On July 5th, 2018, Scott Farris woke up around 9 a.m. He was going to feed the animals and then get a haircut. Afterwards, he made plans to meet his friend at the PGA store to use the simulator and get new golf clubs.
So after I got done taking care of all the animals and everything was situated for the day, I got in my truck to start heading out, and I happened to notice that my youngest sister, Amanda, her vehicle was over there, so I decided to pull up over there to say hi to her.
Yeah. Did you see her or just her vehicle?
I didn't see her at first until I pulled up into the house driveway, and I saw her sitting with Melody on the front porch.
He said Amanda and Melody seemed calm. Then Melody asked him, "Have you seen your father?"
When she asked me that, I was like, well, no. And then she said, well, we can't find him. I go, what do you mean you can't find him? They're like, well, he's not in the house. And I looked and I said, well, his Mercedes is right there in the garage. The RTV is parked right there in the driveway. He's got to be here.
Was there any panic or any type of high energy or anybody trying to do something really quick? Or what was the mood of everybody at that time?
At that time, I didn't notice anybody panicking. I started to, get worried because I was worried that, I hope something didn't happen to him, where he had like a heart attack or something.
It just didn't seem like Gary to head out without telling his family. His CPAP machine, which helped him breathe at night, was still by his bed. His wallet was still on his dresser. Gary wouldn't leave the house without that. Emily and Chris, the other siblings who weren't there, were notified that their dad was missing. Scott hopped on the RTV to check around the yard. He noticed the tractor was parked in a different spot than normal. He was asked if the tractor was easy to drive, and he said yes. It was so easy to drive, and that's part of the reason why Gary had purchased it.
Did you know if your mom could drive the tractor?
Oh, yeah, she definitely knew how to use it. She was using it just a couple days prior to the 3rd.
He continued checking the property. He said every square foot was covered.
In relation to the burn pile where you've marked, did you ever go up that area and look at the trail camera or anything like that?
Yeah, so actually it was Melody who asked me when we were, I don't remember exactly when, but it was still, we were either back on the front porch, but she asked me, she asked if I still had that trail camera down there. I was like, oh yeah, let me, I'll go check it. So I don't remember if I hopped on the RTV or I walked down there, but I went down there and checked the trail camera and saw no indication of my dad being on it.
What'd you do with the trail camera while you were there?
I checked whatever pictures were on it. I know there might have been a couple of animals. I I want to say I saw a picture of Amanda and Melody walking, but it was mainly animals, but I saw no indication of my dad walking by or anybody who didn't, was in my family.
Did you see anything suspicious on it?
No.
Did you delete the things off the camera?
I did because it's just, natural habit.
Scott testified that he didn't think to look at the burn pile at first. Instead, he told his sister and mother he would check the other side of the property.
And I started walking that way, and I believe I got either halfway across the dam or got to the other side, and then Melody called me. And she called me and asked, have you thrown a dead goat on the burn pile? I'm like, no, we haven't had anything to die, and also I wouldn't throw it on the burn pile. And she said, well, come up here and look at this. So I was like, okay. Well, I turned around and started walking, and I see Amanda walking. She was almost kind of like right in front of my dad's office, coming from the burn pile area, walking back up towards the driveway. She was walking there, and Melody was standing over near the burn pile. And I walk up and look, and I can already start seeing bones. And then I look down, and it appeared to me that it was the inside of a skull. The backside was gone, and you could see like the little blood vessels, I think it was, but it didn't look like them. So I grabbed a very, very small corner of it, and I lifted it up just enough to where I saw teeth and an eye socket, and I immediately put it right back. And, I was crouched down, and she was standing right there next to me. And I raise up, I put my hand on, across her chest and push her back and go, these are human remains. I am calling 911 right now. Nobody's allowed down here. And at that same time, that's when I noticed Chris was there, and he was coming around the back side of the house with the girls on the RTV. And I walked right up to him, and I said, get those girls out of here right now. I'm calling 911. And I pretty much, my brother would have argued or, with me on anything like that. And I believe just the look on my face and everything, he didn't second question me. He's like, okay.
Chris quickly shielded his young children from the scene, but then returned to the burn pile to see it for himself.
And so I got in the RTV. I had to go back down there. I went back down to the burn pile, and I took a close look at the burn pile. And I looked, and I was like, wow. And then I saw what looked to me to be like a hand, like bones of a hand, like that. And that's when I just, I think I went in shock. And I went back up to the house and waited for the authorities to arrive. The paramedics, I guess, is who arrived first. But I sat on the back of my truck, really couldn't even talk.
Did you touch anything in the burn pile?
No.
When Scott had a stick and moved something, did you see what it was that he saw or was looking at?
I thought it was a rock. I saw but he told me after I put the girls back up to the room and I came back downstairs, and he told me I think it was human remains. And, of course, my brother and I had conversations after, while this situation is unfolding, and he told me, yeah, I think that's...
Was that before or after he called 911?
After.
Did you see him call 911?
I did not. He said he was going to call 911. He said to get the kids out of here, I'm going to call 911. I didn't stick around long enough to hear him.
Was your mom nearby when you...
She was standing right there.
Did she say anything?
No.
Scott said he knew he had seen the remains of his father.
Were you thinking it was your dad?
Pretty much by that point, yeah, because there was nobody else who it could have been, and my dad was missing. I mean, my dad didn't have any enemies. There was nobody who, we never really had strangers walking across our property. No, never once did I've ever catch anybody on our property. So it was, within an instant, I knew that this was 99% sure this was my dad.
He got off the phone with 911 and walked over to the driveway. Amanda was standing there. He said, "Amanda, this is not good." She kept asking him what he was talking about. He then went over to the road so he could direct the first responders where to go.
What was Amanda like at this time?
At that time, once I told her about finding the remains, that's when she, was somebody who act like, they just found out something bad happened, especially to a loved one. It was kind of like she was shaking and, like I said, she's like, "What do you mean? What do you mean?" And almost in tears.
What was your mom doing?
As in what?
How was she acting? What was she doing?
Never saw any kind of emotion out of her.
Did you see
she didn't get angry with anybody, and she showed no... I didn't notice any of her freaking out or anything like that. The only time that I saw her actually try to kind of show some emotion is after the deputy and the paramedic came back up from the burn pile to say, "Yes, those are human remains." And then just the way that she started acting, I've seen my mother cry. I mean, hundreds of times throughout my life and all. And it appeared to me to be fake. This wasn't her emotion. Her reaction to finding out her, mom had a heart attack and her dad dying and, anything bad happened like that. It was a completely different reaction to what she reacted to when the paramedic and deputy said, "Yes, those were human remains."
Up until that point, has she cried or anything?
No.
Weeks later, the human remains in the burn pile were confirmed to be Gary Farris. Gary was 58 years old. Scott was asked if at some point his feelings changed towards his mom.
I knew I felt something was very off. There was red flags prior to finding my dad. Her having his wallet. I remember at one point, she said that she had the credit card that the one my dad gave me and said, "Never, hold on to this like your life depended on it." Because there was a lot of times my dad said, "Don't ever give her the credit card." And she had it. And I remember asking her, I go, "How do you have this?" She goes, "Well, your father gave it to me." And I knew that was a straight up lie.
He recalled one day in early June. His mom was out of town and his dad was at work. His dad texted him and told him that someone from AT&T was going to be coming over to do some work on their satellite. He asked Scott to go to the house and help out. At one point, Scott began looking for the TV remote in the basement when he came across something else.
I started searching the drawers and the furniture around in that room. First checked under the TV, didn't see it in there. And then there was a piece of furniture behind the couch. And I opened it and I saw a revolver and a leather holster. And I looked at it and I could tell it was, a 38 special, snub nose. I was like, I've never seen that one before. And didn't really think anything of it because, my whole life we've always had guns. So
This was in June of 2018.
Yes, this is like either the middle of June or the beginning of June, somewhere in there. So it was just, a few weeks prior to my dad's death.
When you found the gun, what did you do with it?
I didn't do anything with it.
Did you touch it, pick it up, move it, or just look at it?
I kind of maybe grabbed it enough to kind of like look at it, but I did not pull it out of the drawer because I had the AT&T guy in the basement with me. I didn't want to freak him out. But no, I never really fully picked it up and, looked at it.
On July 5th, as Scott was searching for his father before he found the bones in the burn pile, he was looking in the basement for his dad's CPAP machine. He decided to check and see if the gun was still there. The gun was gone. He then noticed something else, a dime-sized drop of blood by the stairs. Here's Emily again as she testified in court.
And while you were on scene, did you hear Scott mention anything about a gun?
No, he was just he's like, there's something going on here. Like, he was like his senses were up. Like, he's like, there's something going on. Like, this isn't normal. I definitely, driving down, in my mind, was thinking that some terrible accident had happened. Like, he had caught on fire, doing something with the burn pile, and he had caught himself. I thought he had, had a terrible accident. And then by the time I got there, it just quickly started to sink in the seriousness of what happened. And, just reading the room, essentially. I think a lot of people, their suspicion of what actually happened was starting to grow.
Did Scott mention anything about blood to you?
No.
When investigators arrived at the scene, they uncovered more disturbing evidence. A bullet was found lodged in Gary's rib bone.
Once we found out that, there was a bullet found in the rib bone, that obviously he's been shot and then burned, and we all put the pieces together because my dad had no enemies. I never once met anybody in my entire life that hated my dad. So we knew somebody wouldn't have come there. The house wasn't wrecked. I mean, there was nothing. Everything was adding up to us that it wasn't a robbery and it wasn't anything like that. And, her history of, having affairs and doing all this shady stuff that she's done, and especially her making the comment, I can't wait for the day he's dead and I don't have to live with him anymore.
Did Amanda support your mom or support y'all?
So I remember for several weeks, it seemed like, Amanda kept saying, well, he just had a heart attack and fell in the fire. And I was like, Amanda, how could he have had a heart attack and fell in the fire when, A, they found a bullet lodged in his rib bone? And she's like, well, they could be lying to us. I was like, okay, well, if he had a heart attack and fell in the fire, why was everything gone from the fire pit? It's like the RTV would have been there, or the tractor would have been there. There would have been something. There was no indication to, especially to me, that he would have had a heart attack and fell into the fire.
So Amanda was not convinced?
She was not convinced on him being shot.
Was she supportive of your mother?
Oh yes. I mean, like I said, she was always glued to her side from the time I showed up over to the house and even after. And she was always with her.
Chris called me very, very early in the morning and said, Detective Hayes called him and said that they had found a bullet in my dad's rib. And I said, what? What? It was surprising to hear that. And they were like, yeah. And, he's asking, me about it. He's asking where I was. And that's also the time he filled me in. Like, I didn't know that my mom and Scott were being questioned at the precinct. Like, I had no idea that was happening. And like, Chris told me, yeah, like, they're apparently still there. And honestly, my first reaction when I found out that my mom was still being questioned, I said, do we need to get her a lawyer? That was my first reaction. I said, I don't know what's going on and I don't know what happened to him, but I don't want her to get in trouble for something she didn't do. So maybe we should get her an attorney.
The Farris siblings were about to take sides. There would be no funeral. Scott Farris testified that his father's death split his family apart.
Is there a division among the kids now?
Chris, Emily, and I, we're all together. Amanda had turned on us.
Did things get stressful, tense after the death of your father?
Oh, yes. I mean, our whole world got wrecked.
Do you talk to your sister Amanda much anymore?
No, I do not.
How about your other siblings?
Yes, I talk to them at a minimum once a week, roughly.
Right after their dad's death, Scott went up to the lake house to stay with friends, since he wasn't allowed to go back to the farm now that it was a crime scene. Melody, suddenly a widow, went with Amanda, her youngest daughter. Here's Emily talking about Melody's behavior at this point.
She became more hostile. She was more aggressive with us. She was demanding money. Like, she would like bring up instances where my dad had lent us money or something, and she would be like, it's time to pay me back. Like, I need you to pay me back now. And I'm just like, well, I had a payment plan with him. Like, I wasn't just going to give him like a lump sum. And, she was getting pretty aggressive with that.
Emily went to court to transfer the deed of her house into her own name, since both Gary's and Melody's names were on the records after they had helped her buy it. Chris was appointed the executor of Gary's estate.
Was that a contentious area among the family when you were appointed?
Yes.
How so?
My mother was not happy about it.
How did you know that?
Well, the day that I was officially appointed and she had learned about it, her and my brother got into a pretty bad, I guess, argument or something like that.
You weren't there?
I wasn't there.
Chris said he called his mom and told her he didn't have access to the money. He also asked her what had happened to his dad.
I said, just please tell me what happened. I was like, there's no way you know. Or excuse me, there's no way you don't know. If all this happened like they say, there's no way you don't know about it. And then she hung up with me, and I think that's the last time I've talked to my mother ever. I mean, that's the last conversation that I've had with my mother. Period.
The family was struggling to navigate finances without Gary there. And other weird things were happening too. Melody reported Scott to the police, saying he was threatening her. The prosecutor asked Scott to read aloud text messages between Scott and Melody from April 2019, well after the murder.
It's a message from your mom to you. That's April 19, 2019. It says, people come to look at house. Said barn apartment was filthy. Poop in floor, smelled so bad. Other realtor took pictures. This is beyond, I think she was trying to say unacceptable. You see that?
Yes.
And then the 29th message we have here on April 19, 2019 at 1:47, you replied to it. And what did you say?
That is bullshit. What's unacceptable is our father being murdered.
Did you find that your mom was saying things to you that you believe were not true, or saying to other people things that were not true?
Oh, absolutely.
About how you were handling the house?
Yes.
What you were doing?
Yes.
He said someone kept calling animal control on him, but every time they came out, they agreed nothing was wrong and the animals were healthy. He said he couldn't be sure it was his mom calling them, but it was during the time where there were other disputes between them going on. In another text message from April, Scott texted Melody about finances. He read it out loud in court.
I have been giving Amanda $200 every month for insurance. I have it documented. She sent me a text last week saying she canceled the insurance on the Toyota. The lies need to stop because we are not falling for them. Just how we know you're now going around Tennessee telling everyone that Chris and I will get into fights with Daddy. You want to talk about a disappointment. How about you filing a false police report against me? We are not stupid and we are not falling for your lies.
Got pretty bad between y'all?
Yeah, so the whole police report thing, I believe it was after I came back from my grandmother's funeral. I was contacted about meeting with a detective in Woodstock Police Department. Later to come out, the reason why I had to go to Woodstock is because since Cherokee County was handling the investigation with my dad, they could not get involved with this one. Well, I found out the police officer I talked to, he said that Melody filed a report that I threatened to kill her just like how I did my daddy. And
this is all after the fact, right?
Yes.
So is it fair to describe that as soon as you were after finding your father, the family was together for a little bit, and we've heard about the attorney. I'm not going to go into too much of that, but y'all then went and things separated. You, Chris, and Emily went this way, and Amanda went with your mom. Amanda and Chad Bruce went with your mom went that way.
Yes, that's correct.
Meanwhile, Amanda stood by their mom and was angry the other kids didn't back her.
I had to take care of her. I had no option but to take care of her at that point. Emily ran off back to Tennessee, and Chris and Scott were no help. I financially took care of a lot that first year. It was really hard on us. But we did it because it had to be done. God forbid something happened to the house. And I mean, the mortgage was over almost probably $5,500 a month. And then the home insurance, I paid for that. So if anything were to happen to it, we wouldn't be in a really big situation. But that was $600 a month. Paid for the car insurance on all of the cars, including Scott's. And that's kind of where Scott and I fell out.
Over his car?
Over his car, because I was having to pay the car insurance and he didn't have a job at the time. And it was really hard to get money out of him. And I didn't have the money to be paying for all of that. So it just got into arguments, and finally when Jeff Restbridge, the state attorney, got appointed, I just said, please defer all of your questions to him, because it was a losing battle.
Did you ever become aware that Scott would call law enforcement, 911 on your mother pretty regularly in 2019?
From my mother.
Okay. Did you ever hear any of these calls, or did it come up on an altercation between the two of them?
No, she would always call me and say what was happening, and I told her she either needed to audio record it or video record it, or nobody was going to believe her.
You use the past tense when you're talking about your siblings. Why is that?
We don't talk anymore.
They don't talk to you.
Communication is a two-way street.
Amanda testified that she had no idea who murdered her father or how he was killed. From her point of view, the dynamics between her family had always been complicated, even before Gary's death, especially between Amanda and her oldest brother, Chris. She claimed Chris stole from their parents.
And how did you know that he was stealing money from your dad?
Well, my mother made it very apparent. There was never any dirty laundry that both of them weren't willing to air out to all of their children.
So
there was
your
no
dad
boundary.
would do that too?
Yeah.
So he would say, Chris is stealing from me.
Correct.
Okay. And was that in the months and weeks leading up to his death?
Years.
For years?
It's been a problem for as long as as the girls have been around, as far as I'm concerned.
How would your brother do it? You say steal from him. How would that happen?
It was all things that I was told, whether it be my mom, mostly my mom, because I don't think my dad really liked to talk about those problems. He liked to complain to me about my mother. But, I mean, it was well known that he would take checks and he would cash them. He would take credit card numbers and he would use the numbers off of them. Just always needing stuff for the girls. Just always had his hand out. I don't know how else to say it.
Emily turned out to be right. Their mother would need a lawyer. Melody Farris was arrested and charged with felony murder, malice murder, and other charges in June 2019. Her 3-week trial had a complex list of witnesses for the complex lives Gary and Melody had lived. Their 4 children, who were not all speaking to each other, each took the stand. So did Melody and Gary's former lovers and law enforcement officials. Melody was represented by 2 defense attorneys, Michael Ray and John Weaver. The physical evidence included a spent bullet that was found inside the home, as well as blood spots on the basement floor and steps. Melody had initially told detectives that her husband had started the fire in the burn pile a few days before his death, and suggested he might have had an accident or died from health issues. Melody also initially denied having any affairs when questioned by police. Then she admitted that she did have one with a man named Rusty, but that it had ended a year prior to Gary's death. This was another lie. In fact, when she was arrested, it was in Tennessee, where she had been staying with Rusty. The prosecution also called a neighbor, Mr. Braswell, to the stand. Mr. Braswell and Melody were friendly with each other. He agreed that he and Melody would text back and forth and talk about things. On October 10th, 2016, Melody texted him, "He won't even get me and Scott food."
Now, at about 10:24 p.m., you respond to her and you say, is this correct? You say, wow, maybe he'll get hungry one day and won't have anyone to get him any food. Was that your response?
I guess. I don't remember all of this, but it's there, so I guess I did.
Okay. And then October 10th, 2016, 10:26 p.m., from the 1987 number from Melody, the text was from her to you. My response to his fit he threw was, I hope you die alone in a gruesome death. You see that?
Yeah, I see it.
The prosecutor asked if they ever discussed guns, and he said he doesn't recall them ever talking about that.
We got your number from you to her 1987 number, and there's a question. You see that you shooting? You see that?
Mm-hmm.
And then from her, she says, no, laugh out loud. That's on May 4th, 2017, about 6:26 p.m. You see that?
Yeah.
And then from you to her, the message is, you say, okay, see that?
Yeah.
And then on May 4, 2017 at 6:27 p.m., from her number, 1987, she texts you and says, I'm not that bad a shot.
Right.
Going to say between you two, you respond, laugh, LOL. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And then that later on from her to you, same shooting as Saturday or Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
And then finally from her 1987 number to you, May 4th, 2017, 6:20 p.m. And she says, text, handgun, question mark. You see that?
Right.
Did y'all ever talk about guns or shooting?
No.
The prosecutor asked him if he had anything to do with Gary's death, and he said no.
Sir, to be clear, I want you to look at this jury and answer this question. Did you have anything to do with the death of Gary Farris?
No.
Did you personally get involved in it anyway?
No.
Did you help the defendant in any way?
No.
Did you go to the property at any time of this and do anything to aid or abet her in this?
No.
Did you even get close to the property on July 3rd, 4th, and 5th?
No.
Amanda, the sibling who hadn't turned her back on her mother, testified that she has loyalty to both her mother and father.
I think you said on direct your words, you have a loyalty to your mother to a fault.
Yes. I think anybody I feel that way towards.
And it's fair to say that you're biased in favor of your mom.
I wouldn't say how I'm biased in favor of it. I believe that somebody is innocent until they're proven guilty.
So would you say that you do believe in your mom though?
She has told me that she's not guilty, and all I can do is believe that until somebody can prove she is guilty. So I would like to believe that my mother had nothing to do with this. Some may call it denial. I call it honoring my mother, and I would do the exact same thing if it was for my dad.
You may have noticed that when Scott testified, he never referred to Melody as Mom.
You now refer to her exclusively as Melody.
Yes.
And you started doing that in 2019, and you've been doing it ever since. 2019 into 2020. But even when you talk about her past tense, you use the word my mother, talking about her back then.
Yeah, I mean, she acted like a mother. She was my mother. And the reason why I don't like calling her my mother now is because the way she treated me after all this started, and then once it came out that my father was murdered and her actions prior to him being murdered, yeah, I mean, she tore our family apart.
At the time of trial, Scott was 41 years old and worked in manufacturing for a company packaging protein shakes and other products. But according to Melody's defense team, Scott was also the real killer.
Scott, I want you to look at the jury and answer this question. Did you murder your father?
I absolutely did not murder my father. Without a doubt, I loved him.
Look at me. Did you have anything to do to help your mother dispose of and burn your father?
Absolutely not.
Tell them, not me.
No. Like I said, I love my father. He was the backbone. He was the glue to our family.
Before Scott could leave the witness stand, he faced cross-examination from his mother's attorney, John Weaver.
Did your father, in fact, confront you that evening about being out again? Because through the text messages, we clearly have seen that you're constantly hiding from your father to go play golf, to go hang with your friends and not do your job. And he was always controlling your money, yes?
No, he wasn't controlling my money.
Did you shoot him at the barn, Scott?
I never shot my father.
Did you take that bullet and put that bullet in the floor in your mother's house?
I never knew of that bullet.
You would agree with me that it's absurd that there is no blood of any serious measure of your father's in that house consistent with being shot in the house. Yes?
I haven't seen the evidence amount of the only picture of blood that I've seen is what you've come across the screen. I haven't been told about how much blood was found in the house. All I know is the one drop of blood that I noticed.
Weaver went on, accusing Scott of killing his father, while Melody sat stone-faced and rested her hand by her mouth. A few times, she grabbed a Kleenex and wiped her eyes.
You are how tall?
6'6", I know.
Could you stand for the jury, please?
Sure.
And how much do you weigh?
Currently I'm about 280.
You can have a seat. You understand that you are the only person on the property who could have physically pulled off what the district attorney's office and the state has alleged that your mother did. You're aware you're the only person. You even said so in your own interviews that she would have had to have had help. Didn't you say that?
There's a possibility, a chance of that, she could have needed help. But, yes, it just came across me many a times because of my size and the size of my father. Yes, I was going to be looked at like that. But I had nothing to do with it. But I've also seen, you always see people on the news being able to do stuff under, how would you say it, when their adrenaline's rushing and stuff. They're able to do things that they thought they'll never be able to do.
Well, Scott, you would agree. I'm asking, this is my question, and I'll sit down. It's your proposal to this jury that something that's strange and odd on the news about these stories of adrenaline and picking up cars and all these very odd things, that would be somehow how your mother pulled off moving a 300-pound man in the house instead of the very obvious solution, which is that the one person on the property who could move him did move him, and that's you. That's all I have.
In their opening statements, the prosecutor had told the jury that the answer was right in front of them.
When you shrink the world, no robbery, no home invasions, no enemies, no road rage, nothing like that. When you shrink the world, in a case like this, husband and wife, wife kills husband, husband dies. The answer to the question, who did it, sits right there. Melody Walker Farris.
In order to convict Melody, the jury would have to be convinced beyond a reasonable doubt and overlook some of the holes in this case. Like, when was Gary killed?
We don't know exactly when Gary was killed, and we don't have to prove that. The evidence does not require us to prove you the exact time that Gary was shot and killed. But we have a very good idea. Tuesday night around 10 p.m. most likely. Last time he used that CPAP was Tuesday morning. A little after midnight, he got on it. He got up that morning and turned it off. And that machine, when they did a search warrant, shows the times. He's not going to bed without that CPAP. He never used it again.
In Gary's left rib was a .38 special bullet. Where was the murder weapon? The prosecution didn't know the answer to that either. For a motive, however, the prosecution did have a theory: money. Melody, cut off from her husband's finances, was angry that he kept supporting their oldest son, Chris. She was furious over Chris's beach vacation, her latest grievance in a long list. Melody was also the beneficiary to Gary's $2 million life insurance policy. Scott as the killer? That didn't make sense. Scott was riding the gravy train. Why would he kill his dad, who was paying all of his bills and giving him a place to live? The prosecution presented some of the physical evidence that law enforcement found during the investigation. They said there were signs of a cleanup in the house.
They go in the house and look at the house. These are steps going down to the basement. There's blood. There's going to be evidence of blood and cleanup in the kitchen. Her domain. Down the steps. When you get off those steps, if you take off those steps, you can see it. Scott saw some blood on the floor down there. Law enforcement saw it. They go back and spray Blue Star, this chemical stuff that'll light up, and you'll see it. You see those 4, 3, 2, 1 placards there? It's a trail of blood. I've circled this so you can see. Down there is a sofa. There's a ottoman, I believe is the term. And as you get closer, law enforcement found another bullet. We do not know how many times Gary was shot. We know he was shot and killed. We know there are at least 2. The blood trail from the kitchen up there, I believe the evidence is they had an argument. She shot him. He goes downstairs trying to get away. She shoots him again. Whether he was able on his own to get out those doors or she got him out herself. Top to bottom. No home invasion. No robbery. Nothing. That brings us to what we call means, motive, and opportunity. How do you get away with a murder if there's no confession? How do you get away with a murder if there's no video of it? How do you get away with a murder if you try to burn and destroy all the evidence? You don't. When you use your common sense and all the evidence to put it together to shrink the world, and the only reasonable answer is she did it. How could you have done it? Because the question you're going to have in your mind that's going to boil down to this case is, how did that little lady get that big man on the burn pile? She's a cowgirl, farm girl. Her daddy owned a hardware store growing up. She's been around it. She had ropes, leads, straps, tow lines. Did I mention they had a tractor? Means. Necessity is the mother of all inventions. If you just commit a murder, you'll be motivated if you have the means. Money, sex, new life. The truth. As sad as it is, as hard as it is that the defendant murdered and desecrated her own husband.
The defense argued that law enforcement zeroed in on Melody as a suspect from the very beginning. It was a case of confirmation bias, they said. Police didn't focus on any other suspect and built their evidence around their assumption that Melody was the killer. They said investigators never even checked the barn apartment where Scott lived.
And the fact that this investigation was completely veered in one direction, and that's to Melody Walker Farris. So much was left, and that's part of what you've seen in this case. We've been attempting to investigate this case because we ultimately feel that it wasn't. We believe that the complete ignoring of the barn is absolutely, it's just despicable, for lack of a better word. And because they never even looked over there, they never even used Blue Star or Luminol or intook any of those things, even though there were some clear signs that they maybe should have. Gary Farris's card was over there. Scott Farris's bathtub was perfectly clean. They're there.
Throughout the trial, the defense continued to bring up the big, unescapable question. How could Melody physically get her husband out of the house and into the burn pile 100 yards away? At one point, attorney John Weaver lifted multiple 40-pound bags of fertilizers and plopped them down one by one in front of the jury. His point, if these are heavy for him, then how could 120-pound Melody drag 300 pounds into the burn pile?
How was he put on the burn pile? You're not going to hear about that either. You're going to see photographs of tractors. You're going to see photographs of RTVs. Probably of horses too. But you're not going to hear anything about Gary being moved on one of those vehicles. You will hear, though, that there was one drop of blood that was Gary's on the step getting up into the tractor. There's nothing in like the bucket. One drop of blood on the tractor. Where is the gun? Don't know that either. Now, you're going to see photographs of guns. There were guns on the property. There was no .38 found on the property. I think there was an old .32 caliber that was found on the property, but we know that wasn't the gun in question. But what you will find is that Scott has quite a bit of .38 caliber ammunition in the barn. And in fact, he's got it in his bedside table. But yet he claims, and when he testifies, I assume he will be claiming the same thing, that he does not own a .38 caliber pistol. He will claim that he owned a .357 Magnum at one point, but that gun had been stolen years ago, and he didn't have anything that would shoot a .38. Yet he has at least one full box of .38 special ammunition and a loose several other various brands of .38 special in his nightstand. And you'll see all those. You'll see the photographs of those. But where is the gun? No idea. Where are the bullets? They're in Scott's house. Scott's behavior. From the very beginning, like I told you, from the very beginning, Scott is saying, Melody, Melody, Melody. I thought she would do something. Leading law enforcement down this trail.
The defense focused on all the unanswered questions in a case where the murder weapon had not been recovered, no eyewitnesses existed, and a fire destroyed much of the physical evidence.
So, ladies and gentlemen, when you have unanswered questions in a case like this, really the only answer is not guilty.
The jury deliberated for about 3 days. They found Melody Farris guilty of Gary's murder and several lesser charges. While Melody never took the stand at trial, she did finally address the courtroom at her sentencing hearing in December 2024. And what she said was shocking.
July the 5th, 2018, 6 years, 5 months ago today, began the worst nightmare that I could have ever imagined. Not only my world, but my family's world was absolutely destroyed at the hands of one person. I have had 6+ years of being told not to talk. Don't say that. Take legal advice. I could walk out of this courtroom today and drop over dead. I want to make sure that my children, my grandchildren, and Gary's family, and to be honest, at this point in time, the entire world who has viewed this. I have waited for years to make this statement to everyone. I want the world to know who did this. I have always heard that the courtroom is the last place you're going to get the truth. And has that ever been proven to be the truth in this case? Not only did I not do this, I know who did. I know Scott killed his father.
At her sentencing, Melody Farris said she refused to cover for her son, Scott. She then spoke to him directly.
This is not a stolen credit card, a check, or a diamond ring that you've pawned, all of which you have done. I saw you coming from that burn pile the morning of July the 5th in your truck. You told me that you were checking on the fire to make sure that it wasn't going to get the woods on fire. You told me it was okay. I asked you a few weeks later why you were at that burn pile in your truck. And you told me that your dad had told you to clean up the extra wood that was by the barn. You, Scott, immediately started saying that there was a gun missing, a gun that nobody knew about. You never mentioned before. I asked you more days than not where your dad was, and this was the first time you ever had that response. There's a gun missing.
The judge, Judge David Cannon Jr., interrupted her.
Your statements needs to be constrained to the punishment, and, if there's things you want to talk about in relation to that and how I should sentence you, I don't have a problem if you want to continue to profess your innocence, but we're not going to go on for a significant period of time. You resuscitate your view of the case and your opinion as to what the evidence is without your prior testimony and without the state being able to cross-examine it. It's not proper. So I'm going to ask you to restrain your remarks to comply with those directions.
Judge, this needs to be known.
Well,
I'll just ask to respond, Judge.
All right, go ahead.
I went to feed the baby goat the morning of July the 5th before I left for the lake. I saw where you had washed out the barn. I later found that several bottles of house wash were missing after this all happened several weeks ago. Now I know why. The photos of your bathroom spotlessly clean. Now I know why. I know why you demanded me to move the tractor that you so were upset about it being in the place. Now I know why. Scott, you called me on July the 4th and asked me what my plans were for the day. And I told you I was going to the lake with Amanda, and you were so glad that I was going. I thought it odd then. Now I know why. Scott, you failed your polygraph test. You recorded meetings at the attorney's office and turned them over to the DA's office. We hired Manny to help us. Emily is the one who used her daddy's credit card to pay for that attorney. Scott, you got so angry that your sister Amanda was getting my personal clothes and my personal things to the point that Cherokee County had to be called. That is not the actions of the sane person. Scott's anger issues have all been a huge issue. When he was in kindergarten and elementary school, Chris would...
I'm objecting. At this point, she's dragging Scott through the mud and character. It is not awesome.
All right, Ms. Farris, I'm going to cut you off if you keep just wanting to resuscitate facts that aren't before the court.
Melody continued.
I am the mother that was always there for my children, even though they had done things that were wrong.
She vowed to keep fighting for Gary, Big Daddy, as she called him. She asked Judge Cannon to overturn her verdict. I know in my heart who did this, she said.
And I'm begging for help. I'm begging you, Judge Cannon. Please do not send me to prison for something I didn't do. I did not do this. If I had done this, I would take this charge gladly. If it would bring Gary back, I would gladly go to prison. I do not want to wait years for an appeal. I've waited 6 years and 5 months for justice already, but here we are. Maybe I should have testified. but I listened to legal counsel. I wanted the truth out there, and this is why I am making this statement.
Then the judge sentenced her.
Without going into a lot of detail or my thoughts on it, jury's made a determination that Ms. Farris was responsible for her husband's death, and she was found guilty of all charges. I don't have much latitude in sentencing. The legislature has spoken, and the penalty for murder is life. The only determination I have is whether I would be with parole or without parole. I don't believe this is a case that justifies a life without parole sentence, so I'm going to sentence to life with parole.
Melody was sentenced to life in prison with the possibility of parole in 30 years. And the judge added that Melody was also not allowed to contact her family members if they did not wish to hear from her. Melody is currently 64 years old. And that's all for this episode. This episode was researched and written by Gabrielle Roussin. As always, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this case. You can let me know by joining the conversation on our Instagram page @CourtJunkie. To check out our Patreon options, you can visit courtjunkie.com/support. Thanks again for listening. Until next time.